So I'm delighted to be joined today by one of the doyens of the media planning and strategy world in the shape of Dino Myers-Lamptey. You've variously been, I think, at it was Mullen Lowe Media Hub, absolutely PhD Rocket. I think you were head of strategy there, and you've now founded. I'm going to go off piste a bit here. You're now the founder at a place called the Barber Shop.
That's right.
And I've got to ask, why the name?
Oh, the name has many reasons. Clearly not because I have hair, but there's a few different reasons. I mean, when you name anything, as you'd be aware, you just become very aware of everything you see and every name, considering it as to whether it's a good enough name to be a company name. And I kept on seeing lots of barbershops popping up, lots of beautiful little places popping up everywhere. And then I read this article that said that barbershops were the fastest growing businesses in 2018. So I thought that's quite a good omen. You've
been basically a bit of a lifetime advocate, I suppose, of not just of the male medium, but also just media neutrality in general, which is that, I mean, I think there's a fundamental worry I have in terms of how some digitization actually distorts strategy. By which I mean people start to define their target audience not as the number of people we can have a profitable relationship with, but the people who are prepared to interact with us in low-cost channels, which isn't the same thing. And so generally, I think if you have a kind of media hierarchy in your head, you're making a mistake to begin with.
There's lots of, not very creative options that are available to get your message out digitally, because everyone has the tool. Everyone has the same, AI tool, which is great, but you do need that human intervention to raise above what everyone's got. And that needs someone to have a bit of intuition, have a bit of faith, have a bit of, I'm deliberately looking to do something different, because I know that distinction is what is going to stand out.
So it occurs to me that actually one of the ways in which you might want to humanize AI output is by making interactions slower rather than faster. Because there are lots of human decisions which we take kind of iteratively. And we had the statistic recently that an open piece of direct mail on average is visited 4.4 times. Okay? Now, the assumption of the digital age is that you know what you want and that you find a very efficient means to narrow it down and then get it. Okay? But there's an awful lot of human decision making, an awful lot of purchase decisions, as I said, like recarpeting your front room or building an extension, which aren't remotely undertaken like that. They might involve multiple decision-making units, so you may want to pass something on to somebody else. They may involve, repeated kind of interactions where you refine what you want by the act of exploration and so forth. And it strikes me that digital media, by effectively trying to condense the timescale of everything, has missed something. I mean, I think the attention rates of direct mail, by the way, are fantastically slow. So it's 2 minutes, 16 seconds for an open piece is the average attention span. I mean, one thing that actually worries me is that if you have a massive shift into digital media, then impulsive behaviors, of which probably the most extreme might be gambling, disproportionately do well out of this medium, whereas measured behaviors like planning a holiday or moving home, effectively get put on the back burner. And so that's again a kind of a direct mail or at least a catalogue or magazine form, much more than it is perhaps a digital form, I think. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, catalogues are, incredible ways to show range and they've been powerful ways to show range and really worked very well for retailers. I've worked on retailers like Courts who used to rely on it, week in, week out, right? Showed a range, Iceland Foods, all the rest of it. So we did a great campaign, a great direct mail campaign where we partner with The Week, which is a publication that largely gets delivered through people's doors. And people subscribe to it, very successful. But what we loved about The Week was because it shows two perspectives and it deliberately shows that the case for both sides. And so we did a special issue of The Week, which was just focused on, for Argumental and for Dave, showing how the comedians could argue about lots of different things and subjects. Added a dose of comedy in it to advertise the concept of the show and land the proposition.
Brilliant.
So getting, it's something that we knew that will have a high kind of dwell time, allow people to sit down, have a coffee and really understand the full extent of what the show has to offer.
As I always remember Jeremy Bullmore saying, there are some things you can't sell in 15 seconds. It just requires a greater degree of immersion and involvement, or sometimes an argument, funnily enough, to get someone to change their mind.
We always kind of strive for attention in advertising, and attention's is a really important metric. But I often think as well that sometimes we optimize towards attention and forget about, post attention. Let's say the lasting effects of the attention, what you want once you've grabbed people's attention.
So you think you have this problem within media agencies, which is if you're fixated with just cost per impression, mail looks ridiculous. And because you don't have a corresponding kind of measure of quality, consequently there probably are generations of media buyers and planners who just wouldn't know how to justify the existence on a media schedule of this medium. And I suppose there's the quality question. There's also the question of, first of all, there are billion-dollar businesses built on this medium, which is, there is no way American Express would have reached reasonable scale, waiting for people to visit a website and voluntarily sign up. You could get a certain amount of volume that way, but it would be a tiny fraction of what's possible.
Funny enough, the beauty of digital media is that you can capture it and share it easily, but you need to create the experience in the first place. And I think that's one of the benefits that direct mail can deliver. I mean, I remember when I used to work on things like Channel 4, and we used to create these beautiful, direct mail packages and things to send out to really kind of capture the essence of a certain show and give someone an experience.
You can't fragment the letterbox. If you send out 10,000 letters, 10,000 people will receive it.
Yes.
Now, it worries me that if I look at my digital media consumption, I've never really seen an ad for anything from P&G or Unilever. Now, they're the largest advertisers in Britain. Now, you might expect me to see slightly more luxury goods, slightly more B2B messages, slightly fewer, but instead there's a winner-takes-all effect at the level of the individual household. Whereas in a working economy, roughly speaking, you will always see more luxury goods ads because they're higher margin. You'll always see slightly more subscription ads because there's a higher lifetime value. But there's a vague kind of commensurality between what I see and what I spend my money on. Now, in the digital world, I don't see that. In the direct mail world, as I said, you write to 1,000 people, 1,000 people receive it. You don't get that complete distortion, I think. I mentioned those billion-dollar businesses which would never have existed without direct mail. So media exploration, particularly with eccentric media, is a brilliant way to discover what you're missing, effectively, the audiences you never anticipated. And the thing I think that's always a problem in business is that if you've got a very, very sort of powerful finance function, costs are really easy to measure, opportunity costs are kind of nebulous. And so you get a business that's focused on reducing the cost of what it's doing now rather than the possibility, and as a byproduct of that, they're reducing the future possibilities for the next few years.
That's it. And I think that's a really, really important point. We spend a lot of time, doing the strategic work. We spend a lot of time making the case for marketing. And it's a bit of an odd thing to do, really, because actually there's plenty of examples in the world of the case for marketing. The biggest brands in the world are doing it constantly. And it's a bit like with direct mail. We talked about it earlier on, where if people want to see what's effective, look what's coming through the door. Look who's doing it. Look who's using it. That is the people that use it repeat time and time again. That is their econometrics at work. That is showing the proof of the return. That is showing that we're going to do it again because it's working. And I think that there's not enough people that probably look for insights that are out there in the world, in terms of what people are doing. But when you do, you very clearly see that there is a value in using media in more creative ways, but also not forgetting the things that have been tried and tested. And
your future and your growth basically depends on discovering those things, and you're beautifully placed to do so. Well, Dino, thank you very much. We've been speaking to Dino Myers-Lamptey of the Barber Shop. We've been speaking to you as part of Mail Unleashed, which is brought to you by Market Reach. And I hope you've very much enjoyed this episode. There are more to come. And if you ever want to visit repeatedly, all you need to do is go to marketreach.co.uk, where you can actually unleash the magic of mail and much, much more besides. Thank you very much indeed.